5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Old School, New School podcast. I am Will Charles Egan, and as always, we have Chris Meekins.
What up?
We're now sitting a little closer together, and the setup is slightly different.
It's closer because why?
I don't know.
It shouldn't be.
It should. Well, here we are, but if you're not listening, the setup is ever so slightly different. We also have Christmas decorations because tis the season.
Tis the season.
And stuff. We don't have any Christmas decorations. Yeah. That's not true. We have one Christmas decoration at my place. We have the tree, and then we have one Christmas painting on the wall that I demanded we put up. Other than that, men aren't out there decorating.
Yeah. My wife is very minimal on everything, and so there's the right amount.
Yes.
According to her.
Are you kidding? You messing with me? Because I look around and I don't exactly think minimal would be the first word that comes to mind.
Oh, go to some of the people that are my age house.
Fair enough.
Go to a 67-year-old woman's house. Yeah. You'll say,
this is pretty minimal.
Who put up all that stuff? Man?
Yeah. What is all this doing?
So Merry Christmas.
Yeah. And a Happy New Year.
It should be coming out right a couple of days before Christmas.
Yeah, we'll have, we can also plan for our Christmas episode because we're going to have, time off, obviously. Yeah. So we'll figure something out. But today we're talking about being, what is it? Totally dependent on the Lord.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because it's real.
Because it's real.
It's real. Why don't you read that verse?
Experience here. It is Psalm 86:11, and it says, Lord, teach me how you want me to live. Do this so that I will depend on you, my faithful God. Give me a heart that doesn't want anything more than to worship you. Wow. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Teach me.
See you next week.
Yeah. All right. Come back next week. No, this is really good because it's straight to the point, and I really like the fact that it is, Lord, teach me how you want me to live. Teach me how to be dependent on you. Yeah. Because this is not, I think the whole point of this episode is this is not a thing that you do on your own.
You can't, especially the Christian life.
Right.
You can't do it. I'm a Christian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to white knuckle it.
We keep on referring to that every episode.
Yes, it's true. It's kind of like, it's like this is going to be a really corny example, but it's like trying to be a Jedi without using the Force. You can only get so far without.
That makes sense to 98% of our audience.
The other 2% they're going,
what? What is that from?
What are you, Star Wars?
Is that from Gladiator?
Gladiator? No, I'm literally wearing a Star Wars shirt right now.
There you go.
I don't know if that was a hint enough for you.
The Lord was in this.
That's right. Yeah, so it is kind of like having, the Jedi, they wield their lightsabers, the yada yada, but they're nothing without this supernatural power that they have, the Force. Yeah. So, you can kind of tie it in a sort of backwards way to our faith. We don't exactly have lightsabers or anything like that.
No,
I like to think I do because I'm still 22.
Well, you have Ephesians 6.
Yeah, you get the
armor of God.
The armor of God.
You have the sword of the Spirit.
There you go. It's probably better than a lightsaber, anyways. But
wait a minute.
Total nerd.
We live in a new days. Mm-hmm. People do know what a lightsaber is.
Well, yeah, my people would know.
You people.
Us peoples. Well, yeah. you probably saw Star Wars when it came out in theaters, yeah?
I was in the Navy. I was in Gulfport, Mississippi, and I took this girl on a date, and she's like, yeah, let's go see Star Wars. I'm like, what is that? And she's like, oh, I've seen it 8 times.
Holy cow, really?
And so we went, and I went, that's okay.
Dang.
I didn't like her. I didn't like her anyway.
It wasn't worth it.
First and only date. She was really a nice girl.
It was a one and done.
Yeah, one and done.
Yeah. So, Chris,
she may have put that into my mind. She may have transferred that. Yeah. These drones are not the ones you're looking for. Yes. She's like, this woman is not the woman.
She used the Force on you.
Yes.
Yeah. So how is your car wash thing going?
Well, so we signed the papers Friday.
Nice.
On the 15th. And then we took over that afternoon. But reality didn't set in until Monday morning. So Monday I went to work. So
you went to work?
Well, I showed up.
Formality.
I found out what I just bought. Mm-hmm. I probably should put that on.
Oh,
ringer.
Embarrassing. His phone just went off, dude.
So Monday I went in, and, just everything settled down. Mm-hmm. Everything, it's an operating business. So, I was crapping my pants. We'll just put it that way. I mean, I was overwhelmed.
Yes.
I mean, I've done a lot of things. I've been in a fire. I've been in dead persons doing CPR. I've done multiple times.
Hey, you've been in fires.
But it was a different kind of pressure.
Yes.
Of things that I was not expecting, and so. I mean, I went home and I was like, "You have got to be kidding me!" I got home at like 2:00, and I just, I just want to make sure that. Anyway, it was overwhelming, and so I was like numb, and I didn't know what to do. So we went to bed that night, and I fall asleep like that.
Instantly.
I mean, I usually fall asleep while my wife is. I pray first, and then she prays, and I'm usually asleep.
By the time she's praying, you're already.
And so, but I woke up at like 1:00.
Oh, wow.
And I started thinking about these two problems that I had, and they were major problems. And they were going to major financial decision. And I'm like, okay. And and you know how you get thinking.
Oh yeah. How you
this
get
is unsolvable.
thinking.
This is unsolvable.
Yes.
And then I'm like going through anger. I'm going through this and going through all this other thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Lord, how do I do this? How am I going to do this? I'm like, okay, just muscle through it, muscle through it. But now it's 3:00 in the morning.
Right. It's been 2 hours of just sitting there trying to figure it out in your head.
Yeah. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I was under a deep conviction that not deep. I was broken.
Yeah.
I'm like, I made a huge
mistake. Yes.
Expensive one. This is going to be one of the more expensive ones that I've done. Made a few mistakes.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like the Spirit of God was saying, you need to get out of bed and get on your knees right now.
Wow.
And release this to me.
There you go. Middle of the night.
At 3:00 in the morning.
Those things happen at the middle of the night. Those things tend to happen then.
And so I got out. I got on my knees. And I just released this situation, these people, this problem to God.
There you go.
And so crawled back in bed. And I fell asleep until 5:30. I mean, seriously.
There you go.
And honestly, that worked out good for me. Then, the next morning, I woke up and my devotion was Psalm 145.
Oh, there you go.
And it was, I will exalt you, my God, the King. I will praise your name forever and ever. Every day I will praise you and extol your name forever and ever. Great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. His greatness no one can fathom. One generation will commend your works to another. They will tell you of your mighty acts. They will speak of the glorious splendor of your majesty, and I will meditate on your wonderful works. They will tell the power of your awesome works, and I will proclaim your great deeds. Then we will declare your abundant goodness and joyfully sing of your righteousness. The Lord is gracious and compassionate. Okay, so it stopped it. I'm like, the next morning I'm reading this, and then my New Testament reading was on loving people and being a representative of God. And so the whole devotion was when you're working through something, and I mean, this is like bizarre.
Yes.
But this happens more often than you would realize.
I get this a lot too. Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, God, I gave it to you last night. Your word says that you're going to take care of it.
Yeah.
My job is to believe that you can handle this too.
Yes.
And this is like a lot of money to handle.
This is a big thing to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Joyce comes over. She's like, "How you doing?" Because I was like, the night before, I just was like,
freaking out.
I wasn't talking.
Yeah.
And that's like,
that's a sign.
That's a sign.
Something's up with this one today.
So I read it. I'm like, I believe God's going to take care of it. I totally believe, and I'm going to just act out in love and do what I want to do. Because the truth of the matter is, it's more about the people that I'm dealing with.
Okay.
And God's got me there for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
And love overcomes everything, and generosity overcomes everything.
Yeah.
So I went in, and first thing I did is I talked to the one person, and it was like nothing that she was asking me. I had this in my mind that she was going to, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then I talked to this other person, and he explained to me what it was, and I'm like, well, that makes total sense. Okay, yeah, solved.
Oh, really?
Solved.
Problem solved?
Problem solved.
Nice.
Got all kinds of work done.
There you go.
I came home yesterday. I'm like, I think I might like this.
This is the greatest job. You went from I can't do this to this is the greatest job ever.
I totally got screwed on.
Yes.
Got on this deal.
Yeah.
And so and it all began with what?
Just one little bit of doubt, and that was that. It was a little seed that grew into I can't do this.
Right.
And it's always with little things like that, where whether it's with your job or whether it's with a relationship or a family trouble or a friend problem that you're having, where it'll be one little thing that somebody says, or it'll be one little thing that happens where you tend to dwell on it, and then it grows out of proportion because you're just like, you're talking to yourself.
Especially at night.
Yes. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
the things didn't bother me all day long.
Right.
But at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep. Once you get to the echo chamber in your mind when you're on your own, just
horrible.
in your head sleeping,
horrible.
that's when things start
It's
to
horrible.
grow, and then the doubt starts to seep in. And, well, what about this? And you can't do this, and everything's going to be terrible. And you get into the downward spiral, and then you wake up the next morning and you have those few moments where you kind of forget about the problems, and it's just like, new day. And then you start to remember everything. You're like, oh, that's right, I have all these problems. And then sinking right back in.
And I forgot one thing. So after I prayed, crawled back into bed, I put one of my ear pods in, and I put on worship music.
At 3 a.m.?
Yeah, just real quiet in my ear, and then just real quiet, and I just listened to worship, and then I did it like last night. I slept all night long.
Wow. To the worship music?
No, I didn't even turn on the worship music. I went to sleep and woke up at
Yeah.
my typical 3 o'clock. I always wake up for the last
Really?
10, 15 years. 3 o'clock.
Jeez.
Boom. You could set your clock on my.
What do you do? Just go pee or something?
It's an old man problem.
I don't know, man. It's the things that I don't think about or consider because I'm still 22 years old.
Anybody that knows an old man knows what I'm talking about. Now you know.
We'll see when I get
Happens
there.
at 54.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll write it down when I get to 54.
Say, oh, now I know what he was
That
talking about.
thing.
That's what he was talking about 30 years ago.
Oh, that.
So you, I mean, has there ever been a time, and like even recent, and I think that's what we want to talk about on this podcast. We want to make sure that this is real stuff. This is real time.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is us going through life.
This is a documenting of our weekly life as well.
Right.
As much as we're, teaching other people or giving our life experience, we're also preserving the things that we're thinking about on this podcast.
Yeah, because this just doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes through brokenness.
Yeah. This is just what happens when you are totally dependent on God. This isn't something that happens when you're kind of, well, let's try this on our own. Because I would have, had I ever tried to start a podcast, it would be just unlistenable garbage. Because I would have no means of doing it. I'd have no desire. I'd be super inconsistent. But when the Lord put something on your heart and then you invited me into this, now we get this amazing opportunity. We always talk about, every single week, we're so glad that we get to do this. And this is amazing.
We get done. We're like, that was like awesome.
Yeah, every single episode that we always finish, it's always, man, this is great.
Let's switch gears a little bit. This is really nothing more than discipleship. This is me and you, discipling an older guy with a younger guy, and knowing that it's not like as painful.
Right.
I mean, you got to find the right person. We're compatible.
Yes, absolutely. We click very well.
We don't. I don't worry about what he's doing.
No, yeah.
Other than for 1 hour a week.
Yeah, at 3 a.m.
No, like when we do the podcast.
Yes, no, I'm kidding. Yeah.
But that's discipleship. And again, part of that is, well, God, I don't know how to do that. And then God's going, go get a couple mics.
Yes,
get a couple mics.
There you go.
And so we're learning it. So when you have had to depend on God, I mean, we were talking beforehand.
Right.
Will is the only. This is why he's, am I allowed to say arrogant?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I don't think he's arrogant.
I am, but yeah.
No, you're really not.
Right.
But you're the only grandchild on both sides.
Yes. Yeah, on my dad's side and on my mom's side, I am the only one. You know, my mom was an only child. My dad has 2 sisters, neither of which had children of their own, and so it's pretty much just me.
Yeah, and so
Both sides.
it's not that anybody's got, because we were talking about. He's like, I think I'm going to go to my grandmother's on Christmas night, and I'm like, why? He's like, because I'm the only one.
Yeah, right. I kind of have a responsibility to show up. I can't be like, hey, brother, this year you go to grandma's. I'll be with my friends this year.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you have to show your face and be like, I am the grandson.
So being that family pressure, and nobody's putting pressure on you.
No, yeah, it's all self-imposed.
It's also, how do you depend on God to go, okay, this is, I'm not saying this, okay?
Say whatever you want.
Say, your mom, this is not,
Okay. What are you going to say then? Now I'm
your
worried.
mom sent me a text. She said, there's no hot tub coming.
Oh,
So,
yeah, no.
yeah,
Yeah, we're not having a hot tub in the backyard, unfortunately.
But like, you have to depend on God to be Will the son, the grandson, and yet you're a pretty independent guy though.
Very much so, yeah.
And so, how do you depend on God to be like in family relationships? I mean, because we've got so many people that,
Right.
I mean, it's dysfunctional.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we got some dysfunctional listeners because
why
we
they're
got
here.
2 dysfunctional
Yes. Human beings.
human beings.
In every way possible.
So, how do you depend on God
Mm-hmm.
to do what we said? Do this so that I will depend on you, my faithful God. Give me a heart that doesn't want anything more to worship you. That's the next step. But how do you be Will the son?
To be Will the son, well, I mean, a lot of being the son, you know, there's the family pressure and the responsibilities of.
You never heard this question until now.
Yeah, this is. I have to deal with this all the time. No, but I don't really think about it. It's like, how are you a son? How are you a good son? Because a lot of the times you'll hear, you know, pastors or something to say. It's just like, how do you be a good husband? How do you be a good son? How do you be a good father? For me, I never really think about that because I am. And a lot of that, the main part of being a son, especially when you're my age, is just showing up. Because, you know, you're independent now. You don't need your parents as much as you used to. So, I mean, yeah, obviously you rely on your parents and your grandparents still to an extent, but you're at a point where you're independent, where all you got to do is show up, and to your family, that is just an absolute delight.
And so you have to make a choice, though.
Yeah, I have to actively be like, yes, I'm going to visit my family because I love and I care about them.
Is there something deeper inside you that makes those decisions?
Dang, you're coming out with these hard-hitting questions because these are things that I never think about. Well, when it comes to my grandparents specifically, because I mean, with anybody's, you know, family that is getting older, it's always the question of how much time do you have, how much precious moments do you have left with them. And so I always have to think, yeah, you got to make a concerted effort to be with your family because, you know, the family is the first
They're
line
the people that are there when
people
nobody
that are in
else
your life.
shows up.
Exactly. And so you have to steward those relationships well. And so something deep inside of me, especially when I don't want to, it's like, I want to just stay in today. It's Sunday. I don't have to go. And then something deep inside he's like, you should probably go and, you know, visit your mom because she wants to talk to you, or you need to go do this because
she loves you.
Because she loves you. Yeah. Or maybe your mom needs you. She needs to move some things around or put up Christmas decorations. Something as simple as that. It's like, yeah, I don't want to do that, but I have to because I'm their kid and they literally raised me. It's the least I could do.
Yeah.
But I have to make an effort within me just to show up because, especially as an only child on multiple levels and only grandchild and only, like, I have no cousins too, which is another thing that's weird. Like, my roommate has cousins. I've never experienced the whole cousin
That's
thing.
why I get along with you, because Joyce is exactly the same.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, she's got nobody.
There you go. That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I operate very differently than most people.
She wants me to be healthy because she would
socially-
have no life after I die.
Right, exactly.
She could not
Yes.
survive without me.
Such
they
a good
can't
point.
survive without us.
Maybe that's why I'm such a codependent nightmare. I need you to be in my life because without you, there's nobody.
I got nobody.
Yeah. I mean, with being a child, an only child, you just got to show up because that in and of itself is such a delight to the family members. It's like, oh my gosh, Will's here.
So
The
how do
kid's
we
here.
how do we relate this to then? We can actually say the same thing, that God wants us to be completely like dependent on him.
Yeah.
Like the same way we always were on our family.
Absolutely. And I think there's
It's showing up.
a great tie-in is the way that we kind of show up with our family, and our family rejoices when we show up. When we simply show up for God,
Right.
all of the heavenly host rejoices that we're there.
So the family is a representation of God.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of family analogies in the Bible. I mean, you hear, the church is considered the bridegroom of Christ, or that the body of Christ is a family, the family of believers. The iron sharpens iron, where two or more are gathered, there I am with them. It's all about community.
Or 6 or more, or 7 or 3 or 2.
A couple, whoever many want to show up. But that's the thing about the heavenly family is, that we're not related by blood. We're related through spirit. That is the heavenly family. And then there's the heavenly host. So when we show up for God, whether it's like, hey, God, use me today, or I'm here to worship, or I'm here to journal, or I'm going to serve in church today, whatever it looks like for us to show up in our walk with Christ, I think the heavenly host rejoices that we, again, have chosen to follow God for another day, because it's a daily decision to pick up your cross and carry it with things that you don't want to keep doing, with things that you cannot stand, but you're going to still continue to be resilient because that's where God has called you, and that's where he needs you, though you might not understand it. I mean, I'm preaching to myself right now.
Yeah.
These are things that I think build your faith the most, is because, total dependence is Psalm 62:7. I depend on God to save me and to honor me. He is my mighty rock and my place of safety. So the first sentence here, I depend on God to save me and honor me. The very first thing that's most important is God's going to save me, because that's really what matters. What ultimately matters is God gets the glory and the praise. But he's also going to honor me, because in these things that God is calling me to do, that whether I don't understand it or I don't want to do it, I'm going to be honored in some way. And ultimately, the reason why I serve God isn't just so that I can get something out of it. It's to serve God and love others. But there is going to be some, justice, or there's going to be some reward for something that I did or how I was, because God sees us even when nobody else is looking. And when you're sweeping the floor when nobody else asked you to, or you're staying extra hours, or you're doing
Folding towels at the car wash.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect example for you. When you're doing those little things,
Like,
God,
I own this place. What the hell is
going on here? I hired people to do this. Why am I
got
doing
people.
it? Exactly.
Oh, wait a minute. They're doing work.
Yes. Yeah, but when you have the opportunity to just continue to do those little things, that's when you steward your faith the best. And that's when God sees you and says, I'm going to honor you for the good works that you're doing. So keep it up, kid.
And I think what happens is you point people, so people see you in your relationship with your mom or your dad. And our friend Kai, that we're trying to get on this show, but he won't do it. So anybody that knows, you get pressure on that. But anyway, like, he honors his mom. I mean, he's always like,
Absolutely.
he's so honoring to her and treats her with respect, at least in front of me.
Yeah.
Kids are,
From what I see.
when you're with your parents, you're like, shut up, leave
Yes.
me alone.
Yeah, but when you're in public with them, it's like everything's fine.
Yeah. But so it goes on to say, give me a heart that doesn't want anything more than to worship you. And so let's talk a little bit about worship. So it's like, so I have to sit and sing like hymns.
Kumbaya.
Right.
Some people do that.
Men. Do you remember that? Onward, Christian soldier.
Again, what year was this?
This was a long time.
This is before I was
in
born.
the 70s. This was the 70s and the early 80s.
This is before I was born.
This was before Keith Green made the scene.
See, I don't even know who that is.
You don't know who Keith Green is?
Maybe I'm just a bad Christian. I don't know who is Keith Green.
He started it all. He was like one of the first contemporary music.
Oh, like contemporary Christian worship.
Yeah. But anyway, so what does worship mean to God?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy in California, the Purpose-Driven Life. You've never heard of Purpose-Driven Life?
I'm a bad Christian is what I'm finding out here. I don't know.
Are you serious? Rick Warren.
Oh, Rick Warren. Okay. I know who that is.
He wrote The Purpose-Driven Life.
Okay. Well, now I know that.
I'll get you a copy of that.
All right. We'll read it.
It was amazing. But anyway, he talks about what worship is.
Okay.
And it's not just going into church.
Right.
4 songs.
Yeah.
Message. you're out.
Get out, exactly.
What is worship to you?
Well, worship could be contemporary music. A lot of people, especially the younger non-denominational Christians like myself, when they hear the word worship, they tend to think of, there's Elevation, there's Hillsong, there's Bethel, there's Maverick City, which is maybe the biggest, hippest Christian worship group there is.
I hate them.
You don't like Maverick?
Oh my gosh.
No?
I tried. I keep on trying, but it's
man.
not taken.
No?
I shouldn't say I hate. That's
probably
love
strong.
them. I love them.
I love them for who they are. But the work that they do is not for me. That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to each their own, but for me, I think they're good.
Okay.
It's just I can understand the like hipster Christian thing where people are like, "Come on, what the heck is this?" Yeah. But I think worship is obviously more than just contemporary or even just more than hymns, because some people are like you only read the King James version because it's older, therefore it's good, or you only sing old hymns because it's older and therefore it's good, and they think Christianity is this boring old practice that old dusty people practice just because it's older therefore means good, and they think that because my Bible was written before yours it's more accurate or something. It's a lot deeper than that.
Well, it's time tested.
Yes. Hey, that's a very good point, is when things are old and they continue to be how they were back then, how they are now, it's time tested. But worship is a lot more than just those regular practices that some people think are boring. Worship is, heck, I say this almost every single episode, it's a day-to-day practice.
Okay.
I feel like everything is a day-to-day practice, because really the whole Christian life is living day to day, just continuing to say yes to God, and worship is in everything that you do.
Okay, that's where I'm.
Right. All that said.
Thank you for getting there.
Takes me a while to get to the point. Yeah, thank God I finally arrived at the conclusion.
I had to check my email while you're.
Yeah. Well, it's honoring God in everything that you do.
So you worship when you go to work. It's an act of worship because God's called you to represent Him at work.
Yes.
When you give, it's an act of worship. When you are kind to whatever, it's an act of worship.
Yeah.
But being the person that God created you to be, so that's what purpose-driven life is about.
Yeah,
being the person that God created you to be. When you do that, God's like, see.
Yeah.
It's like
there you go.
This podcast. We both believe that God's called us to do that. This is an act of worship.
Sure, yeah. Absolutely.
And so it's not about the results, which we keep on talking about. It's more about God's given us an ability to have a conversation about pretty much anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when we choose to do that, we are using the gifts that God gave us to talk about things that God's shown us over the years, and our perspective. And so when we do that, it's I heard this one saying, it's like I was a fireman, and I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, cleverly disguised as a firefighter.
That's a good way to put it.
And so whatever you're doing, whether you're a beautician, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a carpenter, whether you're a host or a waiter.
Yeah, whatever you do.
I'm cleverly disguised as a follower of Jesus.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm cleverly disguised as that, but I'm a follower of Jesus.
Follower of Jesus, cleverly disguised as whatever your occupation or your hobby or this or that is.
And so give me a heart that doesn't want anything more than to worship you. So it's like, okay, God, help me to worship you. Like, I got a mouth. And it's been working.
I also have a mouth.
I've been working on it. And yesterday, I almost swore like 3 times in front of everybody that I don't know if is a Christian or not, that doesn't swear.
Oh, right.
Nobody's swearing except for me, the Christian in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, God, you've got to help me to stop that, because I want to honor you with my mouth.
Well, yeah, heck, that is one of the easier ways to kind of represent Christ to others. I mean, you can get into the whole debate of is swearing a sin or not, but it's when you have those simple little things of, being able to bring people to the faith through your actions. That's a great way to worship God or honor God.
Right.
Is to just live following Christ, emulating Christ. I heard somebody say that I was on a mission trip, and they said you will be this person, perhaps their first example of Christ in their life, which was like wow, what? Because you live here in the States and everybody knows who Jesus is. They know the whole yada yada, 3 days later on the cross, and he rose again, died for our sins and all this. Christmas, Easter, with the bunny and Santa Claus and the holidays. And people genuinely know or generally know what Christianity is. But some parts of the world, they didn't even know the name Jesus. Yeah. And so to be that person's first example of Christ.
It's so bizarre.
Them, it is
something
bizarre.
That's so
otherworldly,
real to us.
Yes.
And other people don't even, they're like,
I know.
What are you talking about?
It's the most real thing in our life. And for some people, they've never even heard of it. It's a shocking realization for some people. I mean, that's just how radically different that part of the world is.
Good thing they have the interweb.
Yeah, good thing.
Because they can listen to us.
There you go. Because there's people in
Jesus.
Belgium and
now you know.
Australia. Jesus Christ. There you go. Yeah. And so even in this part of the world here, you could be maybe one of their first examples of Christ, of just Christ-like behavior or something like that. And the only way to really emulate that is total dependence on God, because there's only so much you can do on your own.
So tell me a time when you said, you got to pull this out. I'll give you a couple of seconds.
I'll figure it out. Yeah.
But when you were like almost like broken, and you're like, God, I can't do this.
Right.
Was there ever a time?
I mean, I can tell you about it yesterday when I had to do that. I mean, this is a daily thing when you're in my point in life where you have all these transitions and you're dealing with all these thoughts about, am I going to make it, or is this going to work out, or how about this? I mean,
am I just being stupid?
Am I just being stupid? Exactly. Am I going to just die tomorrow? Is what is going to happen? I mean, you have these thoughts when you're younger of the big questions of life a lot. They rattle around your mind, and you want an answer to all of the big questions. Even if it's like, what happens after you die? What happens to me after I die? Am I going to go to heaven? Is this going to work out for me? How is this job going to play out? How's this relationship going to play out? There's a medical issue that I'm having. I don't know how it's going to play out. And you don't have any experience or prior experiences.
Anything to pull up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like this happened to me before. This is probably how it's going to go here in the future. Because, I'm only 22 years old and I know nothing. So for me, total dependence is you come to the realization that you know that you don't know. And the only way that I'm going to get through that, I'm going to weather this storm, is knowing that there is a God that is in control where I'm not, and to just rely on him. Because I get to a point where I'm in my own head, whether it's about, is this podcast going to work out or something like that? Or how is this book going to get published? Is this going to make it? Am I going to win the Hugo Award? Am I going to not? Am I going to do this or that?
Am I going to get paid next week?
Am I going to get paid enough because I just went on vacation and so I missed a couple days? Simple things like that. I know for a fact that God plans the best for me and that he has a desire for me to succeed, because, it says, I am dependent on you. You march out in front of me, and like we read earlier, he will honor me. If I am going to continually rely on him and put him first in my life, God is going to then honor me, because, again, I can't do it all on my own. So you got to get on your knees and put your hands up like this.
So that was my next question. What does that look like for you? You're broken. Okay, You're already broken. You're a broken space. Then what happens in your life when you're broken? When you're like, I'm screwed.
At the end of your rope.
What is it? So what happens? What does it look like?
Well, for me, it's asking a friend, talking to somebody that I know is a fellow believer. My roommate, the perfect example, because he's also a believer, talking with him. Somebody that's close in your life, if you've got that person you can fall back on in your family or a best friend, and then praying and giving it up to God. Because when you surrender, you feel a lot of weight lifted off your shoulders. Kind of like how you did at 3 a.m. I get on my knees, put my hands up, and I say, God, take it.
And there's nothing magical about getting on your knees,
right?
But there's something magical about getting on your knees.
Absolutely.
It's not it's not more powerful holding your hands up while you're praying. Mm-hmm. It's just, something happened.
It's a position of surrender. You're kind of like, you're not tricking yourself into it, but when you physically put yourself, it's like I heard a study that if you fake smile, your body will actually become happier. I mean, it's little psychology tricks like that, where if you first get into a position of surrender, your body will then begin to surrender. Your mind will then begin to surrender. So if you say to yourself, I'm going to surrender, and if you keep repeating it to yourself, you say, God, I surrender this. Take this from me. I'm depending on you. The more and more you say it, the more and more you're going to believe it.
Okay, and so then let's wrap up with then how does God, so I surrender, and I'm like, okay, I surrender.
Now what?
Mm-hmm. And so from my experience, and that's why we're doing this, the age difference is that
right.
I can look back and say, this happened years ago when we were living with Joyce's grandmother, and we had our fourth child coming on, and there's just no more room in the house. And so
right.
so grandma owned the house, so and I couldn't move out, so I had to figure out how to kick her out of her own house.
How'd that go?
It didn't go well.
I figured.
And so I went down the stairs because it was wrong, and but it was my only option. That was
right.
my best thinking. Kick grandma out of her own house.
Right.
I mean,
oh geez, Chris,
I've come a long way.
It really got to that point, huh?
It did.
Okay.
And it was rough.
Yeah.
So I went down the basement, got down on my knees, and I'm like, God, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
My best thinking is throwing grandma out.
Right. This is what I can come up with.
I can't do this, and I have this family that I'm dependent on.
Right.
I need you to show me. And I swear, God gave me a word. He says, go talk to Eleanor, which was my mother-in-law. Just go talk to. So I went over to Eleanor, and Joyce, I said, we're pregnant. We just can't do this anymore. What do you want us to do? And this is the situation. She said, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Well, God figured it out. He gave me an answer that I'd never thought of and put people in the right places. And so when you have the experience that
right.
God will give you the next right step, which we've talked about before, is like, in this case, it was like, okay, go to work on Monday and love them.
Yeah. Simple, easy, next step.
There's a Covey. Stephen Covey? Oh my God! He wrote that planner. Oh my God!
I'm not as much of a focus on the people in the church. I focus on Jesus.
Okay.
That's
Stephen Covey
is my guy.
It was a planning like appointment book anyway.
Okay, got it.
All right.
Like a daily planner type thing?
Yeah, daily planner. And he had like the most, it was like 100 hours, 200 hours for his planners.
Holy cow.
But he broke through all things. So anyway, it's one of the things in his book. He said, seek to understand before you seek to get understood. No, seek to understand before.
That makes sense. Seek to understand before you get understood.
Yeah, you find out what's going on first. Ask the question.
Right.
And you go, oh. I never thought that.
Duh.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. It's usually the simplest answer that is the answer first.
Yeah. So like you, God said, okay, do this.
Right.
And it's like, what does God sound like? He sounds like, I think I should go do this.
Right.
That's what God sounds like.
Yes. A lot of the times the voice in your head is the Lord speaking to you, or maybe through somebody else, a crazy confirmation that you would have never been able to plan or put together on your own. Like, for example, I know a guy he was going through a bad breakup, as us 20-year-olds do. And yeah, I know.
Praise God for that girl I broke up with. Then I would have never had Joyce.
Right.
Praise Jesus.
Yes. If
you're listening, Joyce, I'm grateful that you got rid of Lori.
There you go. Name drop. Uh-oh. No. But when he was going through that bad circumstance, one of I think it was actually his first girlfriend's mom texted him out of the blue because they were good friends. They did speech and debate together. And so the speech and debate kids were all very close and their mothers knew each other. And so he had his first girlfriend's mom's number just in his phone randomly. And I think it was like the day after he broke up with this girl and he was just feeling terrible. I mean, just awful. I mean, you've been through a bad breakup. It's all you could think about.
Right.
And it governs your day to that point where it's just like, this is all I can think about and all I can do. And everybody knows there's something wrong. So this mom just texted him out of the blue and was just like, hey, I feel like God told me to tell you how proud I am of you and how awesome you were with, my daughter, your first girlfriend back when you were in high school. And I just wanted to say how amazed I am how far you came. And this was just out of nowhere.
That's cool.
And he never gets texts like these. And it was such an encouragement. And it was a thing that you could only get if you are listening for God's voice. And it was only a thing that would happen when God then honors you. Like I was talking about, if you obey God, then God will honor you. And that was just exactly what he needed at that time. And so when you're going through the fire, when you're still managing to praise God, like you read all of Psalms and it's that going through the fire, but yet I will praise God.
Yeah.
When you're in that position, that's when you'll start to hear God the most, and that's when he'll work in your life. And when you come out of the fire, it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best way to live ever, because I would have never been able to weather that storm without God, because I am totally dependent on
And
God.
it goes to this thing of, like, that was $1 million lesson that I wouldn't give you a dime for, because you're like this. But I look back and I'm like, something happened in 2005 and changed everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we were going through it, it was horrible.
Right.
It was horrible. We were going to leave the church. We were going to leave my wife's job.
Yeah.
We were going to move. I mean, it was horrible.
Wow.
I look back and I go, everything that's good in my life now started then.
Jeez.
And so same thing with getting sober. I'm broken, Lord. I can't do this. I can't. And he said, okay, just don't drink for the rest of the day.
Say that again. Everything that's good in your life started then when everything was broken.
Whenever it was because what happens is you look back and you go, what's the problem? Oh, it's me.
It's me that's the problem.
Every time they say, when you point your finger at someone, you got three pointing back at you.
Yep.
But everything changed from that point on, and we went from we lost everything to God's put us in a great place today.
There you go.
But there was all kinds of things that were messed up in there.
Right.
And so, yes, from my worst point, surrendering that, then you look back and you watch God bring it through. So
that's profound.
So for you out there that don't know this, or just saying, I don't know how to surrender, email Will, he'll tell you. But you have to become dependent on God.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do have any questions, if you want to ask
Subscribe.
us, if you want to, stay in touch, be sure to like the video. If you appreciate this, hit the subscribe button. We're very appreciative. And if you do have any questions for us, there's an email down in the description. We're going to be continuing this Baller for Jesus series here. Yeah. Next week, stick around.
It's really worked out good. I'm really happy we decided to do this.
Yeah, this is great. We're having great conversations.
Yeah, we're screwed after this. After
we're going to be out of ideas, totally.
Send your ideas.
Yeah, so next week.
And cash.
Yes, please. No. But next week is going to be debt canceling. This will be, what does that even mean? Debt canceling. Stick around next week to find out.
Yeah.
No, but it's going to be good. Again, if you have questions, be sure to shoot us a quick email. We read all 2 that we've gotten so far, because it's not exactly popping off quite yet.
Right.
But hey, we just started, and that's
I'm thrilled with you guys that are listening.
Absolutely, yeah.
Have a wonderful Christmas.
Hey, happy holidays. See you next week.